Happy Monday, everybody. We are getting ready for a double header tonight. If you're watching this live, if not, then maybe the double header will be over. Yanni's back with me to talk about week 2, look ahead to week 3 a little bit. Yanni, how'd you feel about week 2 overall?
I felt great, man, to be honest with you. It was a productive week. I think that, from an ROI standpoint, things went well. But, more than that, I feel pretty dialed in. So, overall, it's like sometimes you're like, man, do I ever beat on what's going on here? But so far, so good.
Yeah, I felt the same. It was a good outcome for me, but I felt the same last week. This week, I felt a little more unsure looking across the board. So I'm looking forward to talking through some of these games with you. Hey, before we get into to week 2 and week 3, want to say real quick, do you have any bets you like for Monday night as we are close to getting into those Monday night games?
To be honest, the only thing I have punched right now is I have Nick Chubb over rushing yards. And, it's like he's Mr. Consistency. He's done it against the Steelers in the past. And I just kind of feel like no Cameron Hayward there. It's lining up like that game where I think it's going to be a physical type game. I feel like he's going to get 20 carries. And as we know, he's a 5-yard per carry guy in his career. So if he gets that, he should go over his total.
Yeah, I like that too. I thought about Elijah Mitchell over too with Amari Cooper out, but I didn't end up doing that. The only thing I have is I thought about it all week, and finally I was like, I'm going to take the Saints -3. I just don't think that the Panthers are really that good, and a field goal game feels to me like I think that the Saints should win this by more like a touchdown, but it's not my most confident play of the week. I only did like half a unit on it, but it's fun to have something on Monday night.
Yeah, for sure. I ended up passing on it, and I'm with you. I just think that at the end of the day, the Saints are clearly, I think, a better football team right now than the Panthers are. But the Panthers have owned the Saints, and this is kind of their Super Bowl if you think about it. So
Yeah, right.
If they're going to get up for a game, it's here. But I'm with you. I mean, I think if I'm a Saints fan and they don't win this game, I'm pretty disappointed.
Yep. And this is a bad thing about me. I have learned to mitigate it, but also after a week where I'm like, I'm up a lot this week. It's half a unit. It's probably fine,
There you go,
I do that sometimes too.
That's how they get you. That's how they
get you. Exactly. Well, hey, let's real quick, because we'll talk as we go through probably, but any big things that really stuck out to you from week 2, like, holy crap, this is going to make a difference moving forward?
I don't know if there was a whole lot between week 1 and week 2 that jumped out. I mean, we saw more of the Dallas Cowboys really kind of establishing that they're good on both sides of the ball, which we kind of knew after week 1, but obviously when you kind of do it back-to-back weeks. And conversely, in that game, I think the Jets are kind of what people thought they would be without Aaron Rodgers, and that's a team that can't really sustain offense. Turns the ball over, obviously, and just can't get it done without Aaron Rodgers. So is that necessarily earth-shattering news? Probably not. But I mean, those were a couple things that stuck out to me. And the only other thing that I guess there's probably maybe 2 other quick things that I saw there. I mentioned it yesterday, like somebody needs to give Sean McVay some dap here because he really is. It's just, he finds ways to compete. He finds ways to get it done. They were severely outmanned. Yeah, he got his Cowboy shout out there.
Cowboys right away.
The Rams are severely outmanned against the 49ers, and they gave them all they could handle in that game. So I think that sticks out. And then the other thing that sticks out to me is the Cincinnati Bengals. And they started slow a year ago, and obviously I don't think anyone put a whole lot of stock in week 1. It was whatever. But the fact that this calf injury might be lingering a little bit for Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, they haven't been able to really figure out how to get him the football at this point. You have to be at least a little concerned backing this Bengals team for the moment. And again, they have enough talent to turn this thing around, but I'm a little concerned if I'm watching the Bengals.
Yeah, I won't spend too much time there, but that was the big one I was going to point out too, is 2 weeks in, I try to still not overreact too much. I mean, yes, it's more than 1 week, but it's still only 2. But man, this Bengals team does not look good. And Joe Burrow was on the sideline massaging that calf at the end. I heard it's possible that he even sits out for a couple weeks. And even if not, he might not be at 100%. So I think it's really concerning for the Bengals right now. And I didn't expect to be saying that after 2 weeks, to be honest.
No.
So Well, hey, let's jump into these, run through some of these games. We can spend a short time or a longer time, depending on if we like the game here, but we'll run through the slate for next week. Starting out, actually, I don't think I have. San Francisco and the Giants. The Giants are going to San Francisco. This is in some places now to -11 for San Francisco. 45 and a half is the over-under. And I was trying to find here. Well, tell me what you think. Oh, here it is. So it started out -9.5 is where it opened, I believe. And so it has crept up. Any thoughts on this widely lined game?
I think it's where the bookmakers had to make it. And I mean, if you asked me what I thought was going to happen here, it's probably that San Francisco is going to pound them. So, when you look at that, I think it's fair. Now, I will say one thing, and this is why, traditional wisdom says you don't lay double digits in the NFL. That's always kind of been, something that you consider or you strongly consider not doing. But I would say this. That Giants offense, from what we heard, Brian Dable took over the play calling in the second half of that game, and they looked like an entirely different team. Now, obviously, they're playing the Arizona Cardinals, not the same thing as playing the San Francisco 49ers, but you wonder if Dable gave them a little bit of juice with what he was doing. Saquon Barkley not being in there, that's a big deal. I mean, it really is. It kind of makes that team a little bit more Daniel Jones based, and against a 49ers defense, is that a good thing? So I don't have a lot of thoughts here, just because, again, that spread is ballooned, and I feel like it's one of those where, maybe Dable gets creative and kind of, I don't know, they stay within around that number. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think San Francisco should pummel them.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing I thought about here was jumping on that first half line while it was
Yeah.
still under a touchdown. When it gets this wide, it's so hard to play because you see in the NFL all the time teams that should pound somebody else and then they squeak it out by 3, right? So I'm not a huge fan of laying that much chalk. If I can get that 6.5, that's what I would consider. So
Yep.
let's move on to another game that's maybe more interesting. And that is the Vikings and the Chargers. This game has flipped. I believe that the Chargers opened as a favorite, and now Minnesota. I mean, it's basically a coin flip, and the total has gone from 51.5 to 54.5. These are two 0-2 teams that both desperately need a win to kind of hang around this year. Yanni, how do you think this goes in Minneapolis?
I'll say this. I have a feeling that this is going to be the most exciting game of the week, and not just because they have an over-under at 54.5. These are two teams that obviously one of them very well. There's going to be some things happening in this game, whether that's turnovers, whether that's whatever. But I think this is going to be a really fun football game. Let's be honest, the loser of this game, their season, it's 3 games in, but you start 0-3, you're really digging yourself a hole that's tough to get out of, particularly for the Chargers in the AFC. But, same thing for the Vikings. You don't want to fall too far behind, even if it's just 0-3. So this is an important game. I mentioned it. I said, when these teams play, you got to hit that over. And obviously people hit that over right away. Driving that number up to where now I don't think it's playable. I mean, you're over 54 at this point. I'm not playing the over at this point, even though if you ask me, I still think it's going to go over. I mean, I think these teams could get in the 30s for sure. So, I mean, I think that this game could end up in the 60s there as far as the total goes. But, my question to you is, and I'm curious what your take is, how do you bet this game? I mean, you've got two teams that they've been inconsistent. At times they look great. It's like they move the ball with ease. Sorry, I just read Shady's comment.
I'm distracting you.
No, at times they move the ball at ease. At other times, bad plays, whether it's penalties or turnovers or sacks, that kind of a thing. I would say for me, the key to this game, other than turnovers, of course, is going to be offensive line play. I think that Vikings offensive line has to play well in this game to allow Cousins to continue to play well and not turn the ball over. And I mean, it's a long way of saying I don't have anything for this game because it's a little too volatile. But I mean, obviously with the Vikings kind of being your team, I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, it's a little scary for me when I end up in the place where I am tonight, but I feel like I'm hopefully getting better and not letting the emotions get the best of me. And I feel like Minnesota's the side here. I actually bet them just for half a unit so far. I wanted to think about it a little more, talk to you more, but I also wanted to I got minus 108 on the money line, which had already moved some. So my wife has a saying where she says, if someone shows you who they are, believe them. And this Chargers team just shows us who they are over and over. I mean, I took a futures bet on them last week, full transparency. I was like, oh man, we dropped another game down. We're getting plus money. This Chargers team is a good team across the board. They've got all this talent. And it's like, yeah, all that's true. And yet they continue to lose close games and find ways to lose all the time. I also think, that turnovers are something that I look at a lot, and I try not to only beat that drum. But Minnesota's been -3 in turnover differential in both of their losses so far. I think they would have beaten Philadelphia if Justin Jefferson doesn't fumble that ball out of the end zone. They had some really costly turnovers. So I think that Minnesota could be two. Now, you could say this about any team, right? I don't want to get into, like it went the way it went. But -3 turnover differential, at that point, you're talking about historically less than a 10% chance to win the game. Well,
Right.
the Chargers are +2 across 2 games in turnover differential. That's not the only thing, but I just think Minnesota's been a better team. And I think that Minnesota's defense has looked better than I thought it would too. Now they're going to be a little bit boomer bust because Brian Flores is going to bring that pressure. But so far, it's looking okay. I mean, as a Vikings fan who watched them just get diced every game last year, I'm super happy to see them putting pressure on, and maybe the other team hits a big play, but hey, at least you tried, And I think it's working okay so far. So this should be a fun game. I think these two teams are somewhat evenly matched, but the way they've played so far this year, and the Vikings being at home too, they feel like the right side to me.
Yeah, I would agree. And one other thing, when we saw the Chargers in week 1, when Tyreek Hill goes off and they got Waddle, you kind of look at that and say, well, okay, it's Tyreek Hill, it's Waddle. But the Chargers struggled with Nick Westbrook-Akina, Treylon Burks,
Right,
and
right.
DeAndre Hopkins. So, you kind of look at that and you say, okay, is there a fundamental problem with their ability to cover in the secondary? And obviously, we know about Justin Jefferson. We know about TJ Hawkinson. Addison's proven he can make some plays. KJ Osborne's, quality type player. So you kind of look at what they did with Hill, and it's like, could this be the 150-yard Justin Jefferson game where you get some contributions from the other guys and they're able to move the ball? I think both teams are going to move the ball in this game. But I think you're right with the points you laid out there. Obviously, the turnover differential, home field advantage. I mean, that would point me towards the Vikings.
Yeah. And that's where, again, for me, like starting out with a half unit, it obviously wasn't a confident take, but it was what I felt like was the right side. So,
yeah.
Hey, I want to divert us here really quick. Pig was just asking this, and I told him I'd ask you. He's liking Pitt, feels like Cleveland might be a little overhyped, but also Cleveland, a good defense. We mentioned it quick, but I mean, this is a good game tonight. Do you think that Cleveland defense shows out the same way they did last week, or was that the Bengals just being terrible?
This was definitely, I think we talked about it going into the week, one of those games that I think we wanted to use as research, as sample size. We wanted to see, was that Cleveland performance in week 1 an anomaly, or are they really, really good on defense? And I don't think we're going to know, and we may not even know after tonight, because Pittsburgh without Deontay Johnson, it's like, how great is that offense? I mean, it's, we'll see. I do like Pittsburgh tonight as far as, if you asked me to bet that. The only reason I didn't bet it is, I mentioned Nick Chubb, Cameron Hayward being out. I just mentioned Deontay Johnson. Yeah. And it's one of those things where I think that this does even out. And I do think Pittsburgh gets the win tonight. But I don't have enough confidence to bet that, because of how good Cleveland looked and how bad Pittsburgh looked in week 1. I expect Pittsburgh to look a little bit better. I expect Cleveland probably not to look quite as good. Obviously, they're on the road playing Big Brother, but you also wonder if that motivates a confident Cleveland team, like, okay, now's our chance to sock it to Big Brother here, in that AFC North. So I've got another buddy who he said the same thing. He said, I think Pittsburgh gets it done. And I said, yeah, I think you're right. I just don't have enough to roll with it. But Sounds like a couple people are on Pitt there.
Daniel's got Pitt. Here's how confident I am. I had a $20 free bet and I put it on Pittsburgh money line. So that's the side I'm on, just not incredibly confident.
I feel like it's definitely the right side. I just don't have enough confidence in it personally. But I do think if you said, what do you think the right side is? I think Pittsburgh's the right side.
I get way more confident with free bets, Yanni.
Oh, absolutely.
than when I'm paying for it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, let's run through some of these games. I may slow us down if there's one that I think is really interesting. You do the same. But Buffalo, your Bills going to Washington -6.5, 44.5 over under. You're the Bills guy. What do you think about this game in Washington?
Yeah, mixed feelings here. I think that I think it's too many points. I mean, I think Washington would be the side in this game. I think that the Bills should be favored, but I mean, he's not right about that. He's not wrong. She's not wrong about that.
Wrong about that. They should fire that candidate.
Yeah. But I think the Bills are probably going to come away with a win. But there's something else to be said about momentum. Obviously, the Bills were able to grab a little momentum after their week 1, choke job. But Washington coming away with that comeback win when they, were getting buried, that's a confidence builder. And to return home, with the way that defense played in the second half and the way their offense started moving the ball, I think that's going to be a close game. So I think, I hope the Bills get the win, but I think 6.5 is too much. But I'll be honest with you, my guess is that goes to 7. So if you do like Washington here, I'm waiting because I have a feeling that people are going to bet that up to a 7.
Yeah, I hear you, and it makes sense to me, and it feels like Washington is the right side. I think Denver's in trouble, man.
Oh yeah,
like we'll get to this, but Washington beat the Cardinals barely at home, and then Washington was really manhandling that Broncos team. I mean, Denver got that crazy Hail Mary at the end of the game to get it close. I just am still hesitant on thinking that Washington's very good. I don't think they're bad. Yanni, honestly, it's what you said preseason. You said this isn't a good team, but this isn't a bad team. Mm-hmm. And I think that is the way I feel about them right now. They're okay. I still just think the Bills, as long as Josh Allen takes care of the ball and they stay healthy, I still think they're one of the better teams in the league. So again, this feels like a levels thing to me. I haven't done it yet, but this is one of the legs I would consider for a teaser. And you could do it either. I could see the case for either side, but I'd be looking at the Bills down to -0.5 here, potentially on a teaser. I can see the case for Washington, but to me, man, I just think that we're gonna see that they're maybe not what they've looked like so far. But
yeah, I mean, and obviously I hope you're right, but I have a feeling this is going to end up being a close, a closer game.
Yeah, well, fair enough. I haven't bet it, and after talking about it, probably won't bet that one. New Orleans and Green Bay, a little bit hard to talk about yet. We haven't seen the second game from New Orleans. Any thoughts maybe on Green Bay? This is Green Bay -2 right now, over under 43.5 for whatever that's worth. But thoughts on Green Bay?
I think we have to wait and see the injury report. I mean, they gave Atlanta a battle there without their 2 best players or their 2 best offensive players. So, I think we got to wait and see. If they're healthy, I think Green Bay has potential in this game if Watson and Aaron Jones are in the lineup. Now, if they're not, I don't like them nearly as much here. But again, I think you're right. We don't know. I want to see a little more from New Orleans tonight. Let's kind of see what that team looks like. And of course, we got to see, make sure they get through the game without any major injuries, that kind of thing.
Yep. I feel pretty, you were talking about having a good read on things. I sort of feel that way about the Packers right now. Like, I think this is a really solid team all the way around. Jordan Love has looked good. He's proven himself to be like a solid, stable quarterback. And it's been 2 games. The defense, if anything, has underperformed a little bit. So they may even have a little bit more upside than what they've shown. I still don't think all of that places them in the conversation for like, are they going to go to the NFC Championship game or something? But I think it is that, like, with Detroit, Minnesota, whatever, yeah, they can definitely hang in that group. Think it's a solid team. So this game to me feels like a close game unless we see something really out of character for New Orleans here tonight. Right. I'd expect it to be close.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. I think this one's kind of interesting. Atlanta and Detroit, and obviously there was the injury news on Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think it sounds like he may play, but could definitely be limited. And this went from I think it was -5.5. Now it's -3.5. And you can even get that at -108. The total, I'll have to look where that was at, but I think it was 47.5. Maybe it's down to 45.5. Atlanta coming to Detroit. What do you think about this game between what I would say are two, maybe just barely above average NFC teams?
Yeah, this is a tough one, and actually, I had the line at -3.5 where it sits right now. So I think the bookmakers are dialed in, and I'm surprised, like you said, it opened as high as it did. There's a couple things here. Detroit is one thing they did well, I thought, against Seattle is they played the run pretty well, and that was actually my concern for the Lions going in. Is Seattle going to try to pound the ball on them, which they did. And even though I think he scored a couple times, Kenneth Walker, those guys, they didn't do a whole lot for as far as production goes. And I think obviously the key to beating Atlanta is you got to stop them on the ground. They're not going to beat this Detroit team throwing the football. That's not going to happen. So, I think it's one of those things where, okay, I saw enough from Detroit. And you mentioned Amon-Ra St. Brown. Obviously, he really is the key to that offense with Goff there. So, we got to make sure he's a go. But I think even with the hook, I like Detroit in this game. I think that they're going to win this game. Obviously, if there's any chance this thing could go to 3, I think you jump on it with Detroit. I don't think that's going to happen, but if it does, I think you jump on that with Detroit. I think I think that they're going to be able to at least slow down that Atlanta, running game at least enough. And I think that Goff is they're putting up enough points that I don't think Atlanta is going to be able to keep up. It's going to take, an 80-yard touchdown from Bijan Robinson for them to keep up. Not to say that can't happen. I don't know if you saw the highlights. I mean, that dude is ridiculous, but
he's not bad.
No, yeah, he's not bad, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think that as long as, Goff has Amon-Ra St. Brown there, I think they'll be able to throw the ball. That Atlanta defense, which I thought would be markedly improved, is like mildly improved from a year ago. They're a little bit better. They're not quite as awful as they were, but I expect, and maybe they still will, it's still early in the year, I expect them to be a little better defensively, but this isn't a good one for them. I mean, they're going to be playing a good offensive line. Again, if Amon-Ra St. Brown's there, they're going to be playing a team that can throw the ball, and obviously the injury to David Montgomery is going to force them to go to Jahmyr Gibbs, so I think that's actually probably a good thing at the end of the day for the Lions.
Yeah, I like that breakdown. I bet a handful of games way ahead of time, before the season even started. And one of the ones I took was Atlanta +5, which ended up being super close to where this opened. Anyway, it wasn't much different. I feel okay about that. I feel like Atlanta plays close games. And after seeing Detroit a couple weeks, I think they're definitely a good team. And, Daniel had said Detroit's fun. I agree. I want to watch Detroit Lions games. I'm slightly underwhelmed, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And like you said, maybe we see better defense here. We see more of a rush, but Atlanta has a solid offensive line, and they've got 2 good running backs, plus Cordell Patterson. Like, I think one of the things that this could come down to is I was looking at the turnover worthy play percentage for quarterbacks today, and Desmond Ridder is the worst through 2 games by a lot. He's over 6%, and the next one is close to 4%. So he's gotten lucky to not turn the ball over more than he has, and I think that could end up being a factor in this game too. I mean, he doesn't get lucky anymore, and the Lions get a pick 6. Atlanta's not the kind of team to dig themselves out of that. So at 5 where I got it, I don't mind it because I think Atlanta is a solid team across the board, and I think that they tend to play close games. If this gets down to -3, there's a good chance that I will just pay the juice to try to middle that with Detroit -3. Because at that line, I do prefer Detroit, even if St. Brown doesn't play. Because Detroit's offensive line has been good, and Goff has looked good. So in Detroit, I agree. Especially if we could get a -3, that would be a huge gift. We'll see.
Yep.
All right, let's move on. Tennessee and Cleveland again. Do you want to say anything about Tennessee again? We haven't seen Cleveland again, but this looks like it's around -5. Well, it's different at different books. Let me see.
It's Bovada's
3.5, 3.5 score most places.
Yeah, I'm on Tennessee here, man. Mike Vrabel, close games. We've seen it here. Are they going to win the game? I don't know. Could they win the game? Sure. But can they stay within a field goal? Probably. I mean, they tend to do that, right? So you kind of look at this, and obviously the concern that I would have is the same concern I had this week, which is Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith and these, are they going to kill Ryan Tannehill? I mean, he has been under ridiculous pressure in those first two games, yet somehow, some way, it hasn't been pretty, but it's like when they need a play, they get a play, and they get enough from Derrick Henry to kind of keep moving the sticks a little bit. Defense has been playing well, and the one thing we do know is Tennessee. We've talked about it; they can stop the run. So if you can make Cleveland one-dimensional and kind of slow down Nick Chubb, very hard to do. We talked about it; he's as consistent as it gets at the running back position, but if you can hold the guy to 50 yards, I mean, what do you got there? So I think that for me, 3.5, I'm on Tennessee here.
Yeah, man, I don't like Tennessee. I'm gonna be on. I mean, I bet the Chargers last week, and except for the Chargers being the Chargers, I think I would do it again.
Yeah, right.
Like, I'm not impressed by Tennessee. I don't think that they should have won that game. I think, but they keep doing it. And when I was looking ahead at this game, it was one that I actually almost bet already, and it's because of exactly what you said. The strength of the Browns is the offensive line creating space and Nick Chubb running. Deshaun Watson has to prove it to me still. He has not looked great throwing the ball so far, and maybe he'll come around. He likes to run as well. I'm not sure Tennessee gives him or Chubb much room to run. I think depending on where they set it, under rushing yards on Nick Chubb is something that I'll look at next week. I've taken that against Tennessee, the team playing Tennessee 2 weeks in a row, and it's worked out great.
Yeah.
And so I think because of those reasons, I think this is actually a bad matchup for Cleveland.
Yeah.
Now, I do think Tennessee could struggle for sure against Cleveland's defense. I think that's going to be a challenge for them. They're a little anemic offensively.
Sure.
But I agree with you. Close game. I would definitely look toward the under here. It is low. It's 41.5 right now, but I still feel like that if I was going to bet it, I would take the under.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it seems like every Tennessee game is going to be 20-17. So, I mean, that's kind of what we're looking at with this team.
Yep. All right, let's move on then to, oh, shoot, I went onto the wrong screen. Here we go. Oh, boy, Houston and Jacksonville. Jacksonville -9.5, 44.5. Have any hot Houston takes, Yanni?
Well, I guess if you're a Texans fan, you got to at least be excited that CJ Stroud put up some yards and, looked like he might be a quarterback. So, I mean, that's good. I think the thing that was really disappointing for Houston this week was the defense not showing up. They've actually last year and in week one, I mean, their defense kind of held up. And this past week, that didn't happen. So for whatever it's worth, you can still get Jacksonville -8.5 at some books here. Obviously to me, that becomes an instant long teaser there, right? They're at home. They just got to win by a field goal. I think, when I look at this here, I think this is a get-right game for Jacksonville's offense. They weren't great yesterday against Kansas City. And, there's probably a lot of reasons for that. I think Kansas City might have a little better defense than we thought, and there were some other things. But I think this is a game where they really get right. And usually you don't say that in a divisional game because they're usually close. But I think Jacksonville will put up a lot of points in this game. The question is, can they get a double-digit win? Probably, because I think we could see kind of what we've seen with Houston the first 2 weeks is they hang around for a little while. First half's kind of close. They're in it. And then, it's just too much. They can't get it done. But I think CJ Stroud's going to have a little tougher go of it on the road than he had it, at the comfort of home there. These teams do know each other a little bit better, obviously. But I think to me, if you can still get that 8.5, this is an instant teaser. I know I've got it teased already, but, I think you tease this here. Other than that, I mean, I think you could look at the Jacksonville team total. You can still get a 27.5 out there. Which, and actually you can get it for plus money, which I think if they're ever a game where they're going to score 30 points, this is it.
Yep, that's where I was going to go. I haven't bet it, but I hadn't honestly looked at what the line was yet. But I like their over. The thing that makes me just a little hesitant here is Jacksonville's offense really has been sputtering. I mean, even in that game against Indy where they ended up with something that looked good, it wasn't good for a lot of the game. And then it wasn't good against the Chiefs. I mean, getting into the red zone 3 times, never scoring a touchdown. And I think that this offense will be good. I'm not saying that it won't be. I actually feel a little bit better about Jacksonville's offense than Cincy's at the moment, though the talent level is there in Cincy. It's just for me, like, does it happen this week? And yes, it should, against a Houston defense that has not shown much at all. And that's where I say, if I'm going to bet something here, it's probably the team total over for Jacksonville. But this is probably either a teaser leg or I stay away. I just want to see Jacksonville start to gel a little bit better before I'm betting them, especially at lines that are this wide, personally.
Yeah, for sure.
Next up, this is an interesting one to me. Be curious what you think. New England going to the Jets, and yes, it's Zach Wilson. You can get +3, I think, now on the Jets. Yeah, we're out to +3. The over-under is at 37 or 37.5.
Yeah.
We're playing this in leather helmets, Yanni.
Yeah. Well, so I think, obviously, and I'm looking here, you can still get a 2.5 at Bovada on New England if you like them. This is going to be that leather helmet type game in a lot of aspects. I think the Jets are kind of probably viewing this game as this is one we can win. We can lean on our defense, that kind of a thing. But I'll be honest, that Jets offense is going to struggle against this New England defense, even in the comfort of their home. So, I'm looking at this and I really like this play a lot. I've already bet it. New England team total over 18.5. That's not a lot of points. So, and I understand New England doesn't have the most dynamic offense in the world. And I understand the Jets defense is good. But first of all, this Jets defense isn't as good as they say they are. You heard comments in that opener about, they're the 85 Bears and they think they're not even a top 3 defense in the league, let alone the 85 Bears. So, I think that when I look at this here, I think New England, first of all, we've seen Mac Jones kind of evolve. He's played well the first 2 weeks. He's thrown the ball pretty well. And I think we've seen this Jets team, the defense is not, other than when they play Josh Allen, my guy, for whatever reason, they're just all right. They're good. I'm not taking anything away from them, but New England's going to get in the 20s in this game, like regardless of what you think. And, I think you can also add in that Zach Wilson factor of, could we see a pick six? Could we see a short field because, he makes a bad decision, bad throw, whatever. So I love the New England team total here, 18.5, 19.5. I mean, anything below 20, I'm all over that with New England here.
I feel like if they get there, they win this game. Probably by 3. I mean, I don't see the Jets getting there against them. I actually think so I hadn't thought about that yet. And I actually was leaning toward feeling like the Jets could really keep New England's offense in check as well. I don't think either of these offenses is very good. I mean, no shit, Trevor. That's why the line's where it is, right? But I do think Ramondre Stevenson over could be in play. Daniel was asking about props. And, this is the thing, again, of teams are better off running the ball. And I think New England wants to run the ball some. We'll see if the Jets try to take that away or not. But I think the other thing that you could get here is a pick six or a fumble, picked up and run in by the defense. Right. So then you're only relying on the offense for 13.5 points or 12.5 or whatever it is. I think that's actually somewhat likely. It was crazy, man. I know that it was the Cowboys, but Zach Wilson's interception line was -200 to throw an interception in that game against the Cowboys. And he had 2 or 3.
At 3, yeah. If they
3, so it hit easily,
but it probably would have been set at -400.
Yeah, exactly. So, man, so I don't hate that. I honestly, when I first looked at this, I was like, man, I think it's the Jets +3, only because I think that the Jets right now are who they were last year, which is still a team that's going to be in games. So this to me is sort of like that Tennessee Cleveland game where it's like, yeah, New England maybe wins it, but I feel like it's close.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. The more I think about it, it's that defensive touchdown potential that concerns me even more. So,
yeah.
I'm staying away, but yeah, that team total over is interesting.
I got to be honest with you, and they're not as physical at the line of scrimmage. New England is not as physical at the line of scrimmage on defense as the Jets are. But I'm telling you, overall, I think that New England defense is better than that Jets defense overall. And I know the Jets are a little more stout up front, a little more physical, that kind of a thing. But I think overall, if you said pick one of these defenses, I'd probably take New England. I know people are probably like, yeah, that's crazy, but that's just my opinion.
No, to me, right now, I feel like I don't have much differentiation between the Jets, the Patriots, the Niners, the Cowboys, though the Cowboys' pressure looks just
I know.
unbelievable,
I know.
but these handful of defenses at the top, yeah, they're all good. And I don't see a huge difference at this point in the season. But
Yep.
All right. Well, we'll see if we can go under like the lowest total of the year here, maybe. Another one that's interesting. So this is one I'll actually just say a little bit about this because it's the main one that I've thought about betting so far, even though I haven't pulled the trigger. And that is Miami -6.5 versus Denver in Miami. This is the spot where, from a betting perspective, you'd look and go, oh, 6.5, Miami's overhyped and Denver's had a couple tough losses and they're going to turn it around. And sure, that could happen. But man, I am so impressed. Like the way Tua was getting the ball out, you don't rush Tua. Good luck.
Mm-hmm.
You have 1 to 1.5 seconds, and that's not enough time to get there. And what blows my mind is you would think when it's that fast that the secondary would have these guys covered up, but they're getting open every time. And Tua's accuracy has been unbelievable.
Yeah.
The way he has dropped these balls in there, I just feel like as long as Tua is healthy, which is always the caveat we give, but honestly, I like the way that he's playing to keep himself healthy too. If you can get the ball out in 1.5 seconds every time, you're probably not going to get hit much. So I think Denver's defense is not playing up to their potential right now. And I can't pretend to fully know why that is. But when you're giving up over 30 points to the Commanders and now you're going to go play the Dolphins at their place, I think you're screwed.
Yeah.
I know it's the NFL and these teams, there's regression back and forth and all this stuff, but I'm high on the Dolphins, man, right now, like quite a bit higher than I was coming into the season. I think they're a legitimate threat for sure. Well, I mean, again, according to the odds, but to win this division, which I didn't think they were coming into the season. I didn't expect that. And their defense has looked solid as well, which is a big deal. That defensive line was causing some disruption. I was really impressed by some of the coverage that I saw in that last game. So I think this is the Dolphins by 2 touchdowns with Denver coming to town. And at 6.5, it's probably my favorite spot on the board right now.
Yeah. And, we talk about potential line movement. This will get to 7, maybe even 7.5. So I think if you like the Dolphins, you want to bet this right now. I don't think you want to wait because I think you're going to lose that valuable half point or potentially valuable half point here. You're right. I mean, it's a mismatch. And, what you said about the Dolphins offense and defense, I think are spot on. On offense, the play designs that they run, and Chris Collinsworth pointed one out on their game last night. It's like their scheme is just, they realize their offensive line isn't great. So they figured out a way to, again, protect the quarterback, use the weapons they have, get the ball out quickly. And like you said, you would think these guys would be covered. But when you have speed like Hill and Waddle and Braxton Berrios and these guys, they're just afraid to jam them. I mean, you don't play, uptight on them. So I think that, they are able until someone can lay the blueprint to maybe figure this offense out, because it is different than it was a year ago for Miami. When you watched them a year ago, it was a little bit more of the drop back and try to get the ball deep to Hill and Waddle. They're not doing that yet. And, maybe someone will figure out that blueprint and take it away and make them switch it up. But, if anybody would have been able to do that, it's Belichick. And they couldn't really, I mean, they did okay, slowing them down, but they didn't necessarily take it away. Like you said, Tua was able to get the ball out quickly, keep the chains moving. And like you said, his accuracy's never been in question. His decision-making's never really been a question. So you're right. And then on the defensive side of the ball, we knew they had talent a year ago. And the fact that they were giving up 30 points, that, to me, that was always a reflection of coaching, discipline, whatever. And, now obviously they have a new defensive coordinator. And I thought we saw some of that coming in. And, in my opinion, they were playing without their best defensive player last night in Jalen Phillips. So I think, they'll get him back, obviously. And I think that, the defense, they could make it a long day for Russell Wilson. They really could. And, even though Russell Wilson tends to always kind of be in these close games and whatever, I think you're right. They're going to come down to Miami. It's going to be 95 degrees most likely down there. I haven't looked at the weather report this week, but I can tell you it was hot as balls here today. So
straight from Florida.
Yeah. So, they're going to come down, be fatigued. They don't necessarily have that depth on the defensive side of the ball. And, the one thing on their defense is, you mentioned it, their front seven plays very soft. They just don't. I mentioned kind of the Jets having that stout defensive front. Denver just doesn't really have that. And I think it puts their secondary in a bad spot. I mean, their secondary will hit. I mean, we've seen Kareem Jackson basically kill people the last couple of weeks. So, they're not afraid to hit in the secondary. The problem is I don't think their front seven can. So anyways, I'm with you on this. I think, first of all, to me, this is an obvious teaser right here for me.
Yep.
I've already got it teased, but I think you can absolutely lay the 6.5 here with no regrets. Will they cover it? Who knows? But I think, like you said, this is a total mismatch in the heat in Miami. This one looks like it could get ugly.
Yeah, for what it's worth, the reason I was on my phone, I went and bet that. I got -105 at BetMGM on 6.5 as well. So slightly less juice. And I think what I might think about adding, Yanni, to your point, is using this as a teaser leg yet. Yeah. Added something else to it and just kind of going that way.
They can't lose this game at home, right? I mean, this NFL, seems like, man, when you look at it.
But they shouldn't. They really shouldn't.
I mean, I don't know. To me, I think, like you said, to me, this line should, if it's me, I have it more at 9.5. But I think you're right. I think people see, okay, Denver was beating Washington. Oh, Denver almost won in week 1. Oh, they got a lot of big names on their team, like that kind of a thing. But you're right. I don't think this is going to be close. I mean, like I said, I've got this closer to a double-digit spread. So I mean, at 6.5, you're getting a little bit of buffer there under the key number 7.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I mean, I think this kind of should be a blowout. There are always, turnovers, injuries, fluke plays, whatever, that keep it from being one. But man, I'll go back to what I said at the beginning. I think right now Miami looks like that top tier of team in the league. And Denver is definitely not.
One other thing, Miami's team total, you can get 27.5 also. Mm-hmm. So even if you don't want to lay the touchdown, so to speak, I mean, what we've seen from that Denver defense, I mean, you mentioned Washington basically shredding them, whatever. I mean, is there any way Miami doesn't put up 30 in the heat down there? It seems crazy that they wouldn't.
Yeah, it's a good call. I like these team totals you're coming through with. I don't always remember to go look at those in time, so that's good. 27.5 is a nice look there. All right, well, that's my favorite spot. This next one is actually another one that I'm somewhat interested in, though I make myself nervous. Indy and Baltimore, it looks like it's mostly -8.5 now. You can still get some -7.5 too. You can get actually mostly 7.5, but there is 8.5 out there. 44 as the total. Any thoughts? Indy, Baltimore.
For me, it's. I won't say I love it, but if you're an analytics bettor, you got to tease this. I mean, you have to. Again, natural teaser leg here, but Baltimore looks pretty good. Obviously, they look good. Indy's looked better than I think I thought they were going to look. We don't know who's going to start at quarterback for Indy, but to be honest, I don't know that it matters. I mean, when you look at the two guys as in their current state, it's probably pretty similar. I mean, you could argue that Minshew's experience and his ability to throw the ball and read defense, you could argue that actually gives you a little advantage. I do think, when I look at this here, it's a little bit too much to ask Indy to win this game. I would not be surprised if this ends up close. But for me, it's a teaser leg. I don't see Baltimore dropping this game. Kind of like I said with Miami, they're not going to lose this game, right? Like I don't see Gardner Minshew going in and beating them. Could it happen? Sure. And again, I think you could argue. I mean, if you ask me, I'm taking the points if I'm looking at this. But I think to me, the safer play is to tease it with a game like Miami, for example.
Yeah, I hear you. And I think that if I bet this, what I'm thinking about doing is taking that teaser leg and putting that with something, but then also putting something on Indy with the points, especially at 8.5, man, it's a lot. And what you said is perfect, Yanni. I'm in exactly the same place. Wow. Indy looks better than I thought they would look.
Mhm.
And in that game against Jacksonville, I sort of thought, oh man, this is just a fluke, and then Houston's terrible. I get it, but Indy looked like a decent team should look against Houston, I thought. The thing that worries me for Indy in any game is that they are so limited in terms of their weapons.
Yeah.
Though Zach Moss really did look pretty good. He ran the ball well. And again, it was against Houston, so we'll see how that goes. But I think it's certainly better than Deion Jackson and whatever Evan Hull or whoever they had back there. So I think they get a little bit of a bump there. Granson's looked okay at tight end. He looks, like an athletic tight end. And like you said, I don't think that the quarterback matters much here. The defensive line has been really solid. DeForest Buckner it can still create some havoc. And so I think that and Baltimore, to me, they've won their games and they've looked pretty good. And I think they're going to be, up there near the top. Certainly Lamar puts them there. But I don't think that they've been dominant. And again, I think the Colts just feel like one of these steady teams. So at 8.5, kind of interested in that and the teaser from 7.5 on Baltimore in both directions.
I feel you, man. I mean, I definitely already have it teased. As a teaser leg. I don't think I'll jump on Indy. But I think, again, if you're asking me which side's right, I think that's too many points.
Yeah, it's a lot. Carolina's playing right now, by the way, update. It is 2 minutes left in the first quarter. It's 3-0 Panthers. So we are missing just a barn burner right now.
Kind of what I think some of us expected, right?
Yeah, exactly. The under 12.5. Carolina goes to Seattle. Seattle obviously had a nice rebound, helped out by their defense, scoring some points as well. Any thoughts on this Carolina-Seattle game? And I should say what the line is there. It is -4.5 Seattle, 42.5 is the over-under.
Yeah, I like Seattle here. I think that I mentioned Carolina's kind of playing their Super Bowl right now as we speak. So then they got to get on a plane on a short week and, go all the way across the country to one of the loudest stadiums, and a rookie quarterback has to play out there. I think Carolina is one of the bottom 3 teams in the league. I mean, I don't think that's a stretch, bottom 3 or 4 teams in the league. Seattle, maybe not as good as I had thought they'd be going in, but still pretty quality team. I think, we saw in Detroit, they can move the ball a little bit. Defense can make some plays. They've got some injuries. They need to get some guys healthy, but I like Seattle here. I think they take this game pretty handily, to be honest with you. I think that, to me, this could be one of those, 24-10 type games where they're kind of in control. They do enough on offense to put some points up. And I think Carolina is going to struggle to score in that game, even though we haven't seen a great effort from Seattle's defense in the first 2 weeks. I think that, this Carolina offense is very limited and they're going to struggle.
Yep. I agree with you there. I thought Seattle bounced back well. I thought that it was amazing how well their offensive line played, given the injuries that they had on the offensive line. So that was good. And I think Seattle's defense is still a concern, but like you said, Carolina's offense just isn't good. And I think Bryce Young is going to continue to struggle this year. And I don't even think that means he won't be good in the long run. But that rookie season is difficult, especially when you have so little talent surrounding you on the offensive side of the ball. And going into an environment like Seattle for the first time, it's just a rough spot. Yeah. One of the ways I thought about playing this, which I used to do last year, I'm not sure it's the best way. Maybe I should just take the 4.5, but was taking Seattle's team total over and Carolina's under, just because I can see both of those happening. But then, hey, if I just get one of the two, I'm okay. I don't know if I'll end up doing that. I also would consider, last week I used the Giants, which, holy crap, did that take a comeback? In a money line parlay because I felt good about that. I think I feel similar to Seattle this week, where it's like, man, I really think they win this game. And I think they probably win it by a lot, but, feels like a good almost parlay piece if I have one other thing I really like there too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do a whole lot of parlays as far as that, money line parlays go. But obviously, since you're over the key number of 3, if you like Seattle here, I mean, you certainly could look at doing that.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm starting to do like one a week, as long as there's 2 teams I really like,
Sure.
So anyway, we'll see. Oh boy, I don't know if there's much to say here. Dallas and Arizona, it's minus 12, 12 and a half, 43 and a half total. I mean, destruction.
At this point, I mean, through 2 weeks, I think you would say Dallas has looked better than anyone through 2 weeks. I mean, including
Yep.
the Niners, the Eagles, whoever. This is, and look, give Arizona credit. I mean, their guys have stepped up and played hard. You got to give Josh Dobbs some credit. I mean, he came in and he's out there fighting and battling, and he's getting the ball to Zach Ertz and Hollywood Brown, and the defense, which they're going to be without Budda Baker, like they're even keeping it competitive. But I think that stops here. I think we've seen too much. I think Dobbs, like you said, that pressure from Dallas is going to be immense. I don't see Arizona doing a lot as far as moving the football. And then obviously on the other side, I mean, Dallas has enough weapons here, and Arizona's defense, even though they've played better than I think we thought, or at least, well, for a half last week they did.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this one, like I said, traditional wisdom for years is you don't lay double digits in the NFL. I think that I'm probably going to lay some points with Dallas here and see what happens, because I don't see how this is close. I really don't.
It's so hard to see how this. Man, did you get to watch the Dallas Jets game for the most part?
Yeah.
Okay. That play where Micah Parsons dipped underneath and just laid Zach Wilson out within like 1.3 seconds was scary, man.
He's on another level right now. I mean,
I was just like, that does not even look real.
No.
And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and looking at Dak, the big knock last year was all the interceptions, right? But you look historically, and I bet his under on interceptions, because I'm like, I think it's going to come back to earth. And it's only been 2 games, but he hasn't thrown a pick yet, and he's looked good. And this offense has weapons. I mean, this game feels like 35-3 or something. I mean, sure. It's such a mismatch.
For sure. I don't, sometimes with these big spreads, you can see like, well, they're probably going to blow them out, but I could see this happening. Maybe like, I mean, this has literal, like you said, this is a 3-4 touchdown type, beat down here for sure.
Yeah. The other thing you wouldn't normally do this with something lined at this point either, but you also could think about using this as one of your teaser legs if you're afraid in any way of some kind of backdoor thing. If
sure.
the Giants or if the Cowboys just pull people, because you can get it to 6.5 right now. So then they just have to win by a touchdown. That's really not a bad look either.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
All right. 13.5, 48.5. You know what game I'm talking about? Kansas City and Chicago. This was one of my other things from last week. Is Chicago sucks so much more than I thought they might. I thought they were going to kind of be okay.
I mean, when we talked about kicking off the season, I know I had said there's a possibility that Chicago could be good. There's a possibility. But I said, until I see it, I'm not going to believe it. I still have them dead last in the NFC North.
Wise man, Yanni.
Well, and I mean, people would say, oh, you just hate Justin Fields. It has nothing to do with hating Justin Fields. Whatever. He could be great. He could be shitty. I don't care. I just don't think that he's a guy that can play in this league. And I mean, through 2 weeks, it sure as heck hasn't looked at it. And I mean, we talked about it in the offseason. I said, I cannot believe that people are betting this guy to win the MVP. I mean, I guess, whatever. I guess because he's fast, you can, whatever. But the bottom line is this team doesn't do anything well. They don't really run the ball well. They don't throw it well. They don't stop the run. They don't stop the pass. They don't do anything well.
You've got it covered. They don't hold on to the ball.
I mean, they really do nothing well. So, going in here, I mean, now I will say this. This is one of those games, unlike Dallas, where even though I think Kansas City is going to beat the ever-living daylights out of them, I could see somehow Chicago covering this game. And that could be, like you said, a backdoor. It could be, whatever, Fields running around, making some crazy throws in the fourth quarter, whatever, that kind of a thing, to where maybe they, it ends up being 30-20, right? But I think here, one thing you can look at, like you mentioned, is you could look at like a first half Kansas City line here. to where Casey's still fighting, playing hard. Maybe they're up, whatever, 17-3 at halftime or something like that. And then who knows? Like I said, maybe Chicago makes it within 10 points in the second half. But I mean, obviously, I want no part of the Bears, no part. But I also would not lay the points with Kansas City here. I would look for like a first half line if I were going to lay the points here.
Yeah, Yanni, I'm with you here. So one of the ways I've been thinking about these, not that this is like new or something, but just how I think about these big spreads and which ones I would want to bet and which ones I wouldn't, is I look, for instance, at the Cowboys and Cardinals, and I just go, the Cowboys defense has the Cardinals offense covered. Like,
Sure.
I don't see how they score much at all. The Cowboys offense has the Cardinals defense covered. Like, they should be able to do almost whatever they want. But in a game like this with the Chiefs, number one, the Chiefs have not looked phenomenal so far this year. Their defense has actually looked maybe better than their offense so far.
Yeah.
So I would just say I'm not as confident in the Chiefs right now as I am in the Cowboys. Now, I think the Chiefs are going to be great, but they're coming out of the gate a little slow. And then also, I don't know on his best day that the Chiefs have Justin Fields covered. Like, I don't think Justin Fields is great, and I don't think he's going to make it long-term as an NFL quarterback, but he has those games where he's got that magic.
Right.
And so I have this part of me that's like, I see the pathway where they don't cover
Exactly. I'm with you.
Yeah. So I'm 100% with you where, like, I just don't want any part of this game, period, because of where the line is at, but it should be the Chiefs all day, really.
Yeah. I mean, there's no reason they shouldn't win this game by 20 points. I mean, there really isn't.
Agreed.
But to your point, I'm not sold that they're going to.
Right. Yep. I agree.
Yeah.
All right. Pittsburgh, Vegas. Again, we haven't seen Pittsburgh yet. This game is basically a pick 'em in Las Vegas. 44-45 is the total. We still have to see Pittsburgh tonight. Any thoughts on Vegas?
No thoughts until we see Pittsburgh. Obviously, I think Vegas needs Devontae Adams healthy. It looks like he hopefully avoided a big concussion, so I think he'll be ready to go. They need to get Jacoby Myers back so they have all their weapons. This Vegas team has to be able to run the football, so I'm curious to see how Pittsburgh does tonight against Nick Chubb. If they can slow him down or not. If they can, I like Pittsburgh's chances against Vegas because I think they can, slow that Vegas offense down. If they struggle with Chubb, I'm going to lean towards Vegas because I think they'll get Josh Jacobs going, which opens up their offense. That Raiders defense, though, it's literally Max Crosby and a bunch of guys. It's like they've got to get some help there. And I don't know this season if that help is going to come. So, and Shay's spot on with what he said there. You're going to see 80% Steelers fans in that Vegas stadium. I mean, it's going to be a yellow and black crowd, not silver and black.
Yeah, I kind of hope, for the sake of this game, I kind of hope Pittsburgh loses tonight, so that this line doesn't move too much. Because while I would love to back Shady's Raiders, and I actually think the Raiders honestly are better than I thought they would. Their offense is decent, and they've, definitely got playmakers and stuff. But it's your point, Yanni, of what are they going to do on defense? And even though Pittsburgh didn't look great in game number one, I'm not ready to just bail on Pittsburgh completely here. And so I think even in Vegas, and like you said about the home field advantage, I don't think this game is a coin flip. To me, this is Pittsburgh -3, -3.5. So I think it's kind of a deal right now.
Yeah, I think, you're right. I think I'm with you 100%. I'm curious again to see kind of what that Pittsburgh run defense can do with Chubb here, because I think that's going to be a key in that game. But, again, you talk about early props and we haven't seen the lines, but, this could be a Najee Harris type game against that Raiders defense. Right. We've seen week 1 and week 2, they've been vulnerable against the run, and, if Pittsburgh can establish that. So I think you're right, though, depending on what we see from Pittsburgh here. But I don't think this line, at worst, even if Pittsburgh looks great tonight, what is it going to move to? -2? You're still going to be under a field goal, most likely going into that. So I think you can wait, see how Pittsburgh looks here, make sure they make it out of the game healthy, that kind of a thing.
Right. True.
And you could still lay it there. Cause again, we know they're one TJ Watt injury away from having a horrendous defense. We saw it last year. So, or 2 years ago. So, anyways, yeah.
especially with Hayward already out.
Right,
They've already got injuries to
right,
worry about, right?
right.
So, all right, then we got the 2 Monday night games. First up is Philly going to Tampa Bay. The somewhat surprising Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the fighting Baker Mayfields. Right now it's -5.5 for Philly, and that's come down a little. I think it was 6 or 6.5,
It
and
was.
45.5 for the total. Yeah, so coming back toward Tampa a little. I would say, to me, Philly has looked a little shaky
Yeah.
at the beginning of this year, and Tampa has looked. They've looked better than I thought they would. Do you think Philly is on another level enough to go in and win this game in a dominant fashion?
Can they? Yes. Do I think they will? Not necessarily. But because of that uncertainty, I'm looking the other direction. I'm looking under, under, under.
Mm,
I think that Tampa defense, I've talked about it. I think they're good enough that they can slow that Philly offense down. I don't think Philly's going to be able to run DeAndre Swift like they did the other night. I think that they're going to be able. Tampa will take that away, force them to throw. I'm sure Philly will make some plays. I mean, they're too good with their weapons to not make some plays. Jalen Hurts, whatever. But I don't know that Philly's going to be able to rack up points. And on the flip side, I think we're going to see this Tampa offense finally really struggle. I mean, Baker Mayfield's looked good. His first 2 weeks, he's playing confidently. He's getting the ball to his receivers. They even got a little bit of a running game going this past week. But I think that stops against Philly. I think that running game goes nowhere. I think Baker's under some pressure, and that performance we saw this weekend, that ain't going to happen. So rather than kind of laying the points on the road, I'm looking at under here because to me this looks like one of those games where it's going to be kind of slug it out, and maybe Philly wins this 20-16 or 23-17, and I think it stays under. That's kind of where I'm at with this one.
I'm gonna have to eat my words after this week. Finally, I have not been big on the Bucks, and I already admitted they've looked better than I thought they would. But a couple things here. And I think Philly has looked shaky, to be honest, too. So that makes me a little nervous about where I'm going here. But Tampa Bay has a +3 turnover differential against Minnesota. They win that game by 3. Minnesota threw the ball all over them.
Yep.
They just couldn't put it in the end zone. It's one of those where the score doesn't reflect the way the game went. And
Right.
Minnesota lost the game. Like, they did the things to lose the game. So that's fine. But then they beat the Bears by 10 in a game and that's a fine win. It's nice. Rachaad White got going a little bit, but I'm 100% in agreement with you. Running on the Chicago Bears is not the same as running on the Philadelphia Eagles. And Rachaad White didn't look good against Minnesota in week 1, which isn't necessarily a daunting defense to go up against. Baker Mayfield has done great so far. Coming into the season, I said I wouldn't be shocked if Baker Mayfield has a couple good performances before he inevitably falls apart. And I think one of the things that's going to make him fall apart if he does, and he could get older, mature, get better. I'm not saying he couldn't get better, but I think it's going to be pressure. And I don't know that he's faced much pressure to this point.
Right.
And I think he's going to face pressure in this game.
Yeah.
So while I feel nervous because I think, man, Philadelphia's looked shaky to me. Tampa Bay's look solid. When I look into how the games have gone and who the competition has been, I think there's reasons why it has looked the way it has. And I do think Tampa's better than I thought they were coming into the season, but I thought they were a 3 or 4 win team coming into the season. So now maybe I think they're a 6-win team. I still don't think they're very good. And I think that this is going to go downhill some. So to me, I don't hate Philadelphia minus the 5.5, especially if this comes down more. But even more than that, this would be another spot where I don't mind working them into a teaser, where I just need them to win. Could I see them losing this game? Yeah, I mean, I can see the path there, but I still think even if their levels are closer than I thought going into the year, I mean, again, Philly is just such a good team all the way around, and I think they find a way to win this game at least, so I don't mind it from a teaser perspective. I do like what you're saying about the under, though, too, Yanni. I could definitely see this being a bit of a grind. So that makes sense to me. Any thoughts on that
Yeah,
stuff?
I don't think Tampa's going to score much in the.
We got a little bit of a freeze up. We'll see if
Yeah, I don't.
Oh, there we go. You're back. I think.
Is that on my end or your end there that we lost you?
Oh, did you lose me?
You there?
Yeah, I think I'm
Yeah.
here. I don't know if you are we coming back?
I can hear you now. Yeah. Can you hear me all
Okay, I
right?
couldn't hear you either. Hopefully we'll be back. Go ahead.
Yeah, hopefully. I think we got one game left, right?
Yep, we're almost done.
All right, let's move on. I think we're in agreement. Philly and under are probably the two looks for that one then, and let's see if we can wrap up the final game here.
Rams at Bengals. This is down to Bengals minus 1.5. And I know this is on the Burrow news, but 1.5, 44 over or under.
Uh, what was the preseason look ahead line on this game? It had to be, I mean, 7.5. What I mean, what
It
were we
had to
looking?
be. I was going to see what it was before Sunday, even. I
Yeah,
mean, it was 6.5 before Sunday, and that was after the Rams beating the Seahawks. So it probably was at least 7.5,
seven and a
if
half, eight
not
and a
eight and
half.
a half.
Yeah, crazy what 2 weeks can do. I mean, again, obviously, until we know if Burrow's not playing, this team's done. They have no backup quarterback. I mean, Browning is awful. I don't know if you watched him play. I mean, he looks terrible. So if Burrow's not in this game's done. You know, that Bengals offense is done. And yes, Shady, it is the Bill Ripken. This is the you guys know which card this is?
I don't.
Look
Bill
up the 80.
Ripken.
Yeah, look up the 89 Fleer Bill Ripken card when we're done here.
All right, I will.
Yeah, and you can see. But yeah, you know, I mean, this Bengals offense, obviously, like we said, they don't look good. I don't know how the Rams are being competitive. I mean, we talked about it with the 49ers. Like, they had no business being in that game, and it took the 49ers 3.5 quarters before they pulled away. You know, I mean, they're finding Sean McVay found Puka Nakua. I mean, I've never heard of this guy, you know, and he's out here catching 20 passes a game, you know, and basically looking like Cooper Kupp out there and whatever. I don't know, man. I mean, for me, I can't even touch this until we see what Burrow does. Depending on where that line moves, I may take a chance on the Bengals if it's less than a field goal, because it's like, I feel like it's like, okay, I got to give them one more try here, but who knows, man? I don't know. What do you think?
Dude, I don't know what to do with this. I mean, the Rams, again, it's like, oh, okay, they look good, I guess. I mean, Puka Nakua, I mean, I'm sure you saw this. I hadn't known it, but I heard today he has 25 catches in 2 games. He had 15 catches in that last game.
I know.
That's insane. I mean,
it's not like Cooper Kupp's out there, so they're like, oh, we're double teaming Cooper Kupp, and this guy's getting over. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy.
This just blows my mind. I mean, it feels like the buy low spot of the millennium on the Bengals. And I get the Joe Burrow thing, and like you said about Brown, I get it. But it's not even in LA. I mean, it's in Cincinnati. I probably just watch this one and laugh. I don't know what to do with this game at this point.
Like I said, if Burrow is in and this stays under a field goal, I'll probably buy low and say screw it, you know. And if it doesn't hit, it doesn't hit. But because obviously the Rams are substantially better than we thought they were going to be. Now, granted, we did say that starting the season, you know, Stafford, McVay, that, you know, they might do all right, but they're doing better than all right. I mean, they look pretty good. So, you know, I don't know. Like I said, credit to Sean McVay. I mean, when you look at that defense, other than Aaron Donald, I mean, it is a bunch of nobodies out there, and they're playing hard, you know, making plays. And then obviously, like I said, on offense. And the one thing I will say is that Rams offensive line, which I don't think we thought was going to be any good, they've looked pretty good. Like, Stafford's had some pretty clean pockets overall, and they've been able to run the ball. And to me, that's the surprising part, because I thought, offensive line's going to struggle. Stafford's going to be a statue back there, and that hasn't happened.
Man, I thought the same thing. That's definitely where I was. So,
yep.
My Rams under 7.5 bets would appreciate if they could lose this game.
Yeah, there you go.
But man, they look way better than I thought they would, for sure.
For sure.
So,
for sure.
Yeah, I got nothing on this one. By the way, I looked up that Bill Ripken card you got on, and it's a nice bat he's got. That's all I'll say.
I don't know if we can see it on the shirt here or not, but yeah,
it might not be clear enough.
It's on there. I don't think you can see it on the screen.
It's clear if you go look at the card online on the bat. So very nice. Very nice.
It's just like the 1952 Mickey Mantle. It's like the same historical card.
It's hilarious, man. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I got to up my shirt game.
Yeah.
So, all right, man. Well, hey, it's 6-3 now in that Saints Panthers game, so we better go get to it because
I'm
you don't want to miss any more of that.
I want to see some more field goals. Let's see.
Absolutely, let's go do
All
it.
right, man.
Thanks, man. We'll talk
Well,
to you soon.
yeah, take care. We'll see you.